I should say that I'm not going to cut any content. I'm just going to talk a lot quicker. So thank you for that introduction. I'll start with my job title, because it means absolutely nothing. My job title is Application Services Sustenance Team Manager Bespoke, which is absolutely fantastic. No one ever cold calls asking for the Application Services Sustenance Team Manager Bespoke person. It's also that awkward moment when I had to ask for a second sheet of paper on my son's birth certificate. That's absolutely genuine. To put it in anything real, in ITIL terms, I'm a service owner. Come on in. I'm a service owner for research intelligence, research accounting, HR payroll, student systems, business intelligence. I always have to remember those. I do forget a few. In Agile terms, kind of thrust of today, I'm a Scrum Master, quite often, not always. But really, I'm a resource manager for a development team. So I bring those to the Agile table, as it were. In absolute real terms, I head up live system support for our bespoke systems, for those services I just mentioned. So I'm kind of going to echo some of the conversations which have happened out in the auditorium and in presentations, but these challenges upon IT. I forget whose presentation it was, the kind of vultures descending in. I'd hope it's not quite that bad, but within our sector, just to highlight some from my side, what I feel, there is a ref. There is a TEF, apparently, coming. There is no AEF. There is no Administrative Excellence Framework that all the academics want to do world-class administration on our systems. Not that I know of, anyway. That's a challenge for our sector, for our area, for IT. Making systems which are light touch enough to be enablers and not detractors. Technological, I'll teach people to suck eggs if I go through this, but if you subscribe to Gartner, that kind of cloud, mobile, social, big data. But really for me, to highlight both of those points above, it's expectations. Expectations upon IT, because it's easy, isn't it, this IT malark? And in some ways it is, it's getting better. There are enablers in technology which will allow for rapid application development that just weren't there before. But I will precursor that with saying there is an awful lot of complexity being driven into our area, and that can't be escaped from. And especially in an age where people can throw up a WordPress site in a day, the expectation upon IT to be able to deliver that kind of rapid development is difficult. Alternatives. Now, I'll reveal my hand a little bit here. It's an ironic thing at our university that there is one catering provider. You want a meeting, you want food at that meeting, sustenance, not my job title. You've got to go to one catering provider. If you want an IT system and you don't like the food on offer from IT services, you can go elsewhere. You can buy a system. Now, you could say that's a question of governance, and I'd agree with you. But fundamentally, IT has no preordained right to exist, to have a seat at that table, unless we deliver business value. Weight of legislation. Anyone kind of had this feeling now the gloves are off? Things which are untouchable are changing. We develop our own HR payroll software at the moment at the university, I think changes to PAYE, decades being undone. USS changes and our returns to that. HESA changes, dramatic changes over the last few years in certain instances, and what we have to capture. And it's a weight. Oh, this title. Somebody phrased it a lot better than this. Do better with the same. I prefer that. But show of hands, has anyone been in a meeting? Maybe not those words, but that kind of do more with less? Yes, thank you. Hate it, absolutely hate it. It's a fallacy, it doesn't work. So with those challenges, there are consistent themes in the approaches that we must take to meet those challenges. Reasonable ones, governance control. Know our priorities and our business priorities and only work on them. If you've got limited resource, only work on the things which we absolutely need. Don't drop the ball, Richard. And control them. I'm sure most of us would agree we'd prefer predictable and a little bit slower as opposed to often quick, always chaotic. Transparency. Know our priorities, only work on them, and let us know what you're working on. Don't cherry pick what you want to work on because they're nice, quick wins. Work on our priorities, and don't obfuscate. Deliver metrics. Prove your worth. Everyone feel in the IT this kind of burden on proof. Somebody wants a research grant involving millions. Here's the money. Somebody wants one more IT person. Tell us every single reason why you've ever needed another IT person. Tell me why that person had a cigarette break yesterday. And professional and new ways of working. This kind of expectation that we're all going to middleware and we're all delivering business process improvement and all moving to DevOps. Yeah, I'm sure we all are in certain areas, now and again. But the ironic thing is, not ironic, the catch-22, all reasonable expectations, in part, any one of those is an overhead. It's an investment to deliver on those approaches, on those themes, against those challenges. So what I'm going to talk about is how, within our area, University of Birmingham Application Services, some of the approaches we took to meeting those challenges, or are taking. We restructured. I'm going to fly through, I'm not going to cover it in points, I'll show you it. So that's our old setup, where we have siloed areas. Is this familiar to some? So development teams exist around a business function. If that business function wants to gild the lily, we'll do it. If there's a business priority, holistic business priority that exists within another function, wherever that may be, there's no kind of elastic resource. So at Birmingham, we changed to this. This was masterminded, led by our head of application services, Larry Kearns, if anyone knows him, active participant at UCISG. So we split our development teams into 4. We split across sustenance and development. So set service, there's me. Set service owners with resource to support the live system operation. Development uninterrupted without, not always uninterrupted, but less of the high interrupt environment of support, dedicated resource to step change. We also split, some would argue arbitrarily, in each side between commercial and bespoke. The notion being that the skills to support a bespoke application, coding, development skills, are different from the skills to support a commercial product, user group influence, choose my words carefully, and configuration and web presentation. And what we did is we took the previous silo managers, took away the burden of resource management, the overhead, took the goodwill, the confidence that's been instilled over years in these managers and made them analysts. Process and integration analysts, we choose fantastic titles at the university. Again, a pretty vague job title, but fundamentally someone that does that business analysis function. They operate across the whole piece, I should say, as well, regardless of how it looks on the hierarchy. I'm not going to labour this point too much, A, because it wasn't my deliverable, but B, I'll completely miss Kanban. And a presentation where you say you can Kanban and then don't talk about Kanban. Okay, so what did we do? We also adopted Agile. We adopted Agile in a big way, quite risky way in some ways, but we're now at the stage where, let me make sure I don't completely lose the audience. I'm going to steal something from another speaker again. That just a minute moment, who here can speak for a minute without hesitation and repetition on Agile. And this time, let's go show of hands, but left to right. Let's kind of, ready? Oh, that's a lousy Mexican wave. Okay, so a fair few of you in the room. Are there any Agile evangelists in the room? If you could just cover your ears, I'd really be grateful, because I'm going to do a horrible job of summarizing Agile in a minute or so. For the purposes of this presentation, when you instill it within your organizations, do due diligence. That's a disclaimer for you. Fundamentally, Agile, delivering, we all know waterfall. Capture the requirements, specification phase, develop them, test them, deliver them. Agile takes that and it flips it on its head. Let's product backlog generation, capture requirements, capture them as user stories, capture them in the essence of who wants to do something, what do they want to do, and why do they want to do it. Now that's the kind of card. There's a conversation that would go with that as well. But in essence, that's the capturing. Rather than wait until the very end, capture them at the beginning, wait till the end to say, are those still right for you, hoping that they're still right. Let's iteratively work on them in typically 2-week chunks, maybe a week chunk. Let's deliver something at the end of that week. Let's make sure it's what business actually wanted. Makes sense? To the Agile evangelists, do you hate me now? Is that reasonable? I'm sure we could all bore people to death in the bar about that. There are some set roles within Agile. I love this. The title, whoever came up with Scrum Master. I was talking to someone saying one of the barriers to adopting Agile is this term, a Scrum Master, being perhaps gender biased, but Scrum Mistress sounds bloody terrible. Fine. If you implement the Scrum Mistresses, I will happily come to your organization, give a presentation. Okay. Responsible for the quality of delivery. Responsible for adhering to Agile processes. Let's plan at the start of an iteration. Let's review it at the end. Let's make sure, if you're mature, daily stand-ups as well. Key, at the end of an iteration, let's not wait until the end to do lessons learned. Let's do retrospectives along the way. Development teams, stands to reason, I won't labour that. Responsible for the quality of the software. With the amount of Agile implementations that are non-IT now, that's me being really lazy there. It's not quality of software, quality of delivery of the whatever technical aspect it is you're delivering. Some would even argue non-technical now as well. And the role of product owners. The business contacts who can define business value. In my area, in sustenance, live system support, we make them the chair of our ops groups. They're central, absolutely crucial. Again, a Scrum Master course, from, if you believe our training providers, 2 days, product owner, 2 days. That's whistle stop and very brisk. Hope it means something. Anyway, what did we do with my area? We adopted Agile with those roles, with the notion of working iteratively. But the transparency wasn't in a Scrum, Agile Scrum, as we've all heard, setup. The visualization was with Kanban. Before going on to our Kanban board, I don't want to overbill this at all. I hope I haven't at any stage. It is the Japanese word for signpost because it's exactly that. It is a signpost, a status of where we are on any given user story, enhancement, whatever you want to call them, at any moment in time. Single source of truth for status, per service. It sounds simple, it absolutely is, but we go back to those challenges. We go back to rather approaches and themes we must take. It underpins our transparency. There's one board where everything's on for that service. Governance, it facilitates governance. Our ops groups now work off the Kanban board, nothing else. Hurrah. No more 4 different versions of spreadsheets, 2 maintained by IT, 2 in business. Never the tween shall meet. I would say as well, when it facilitates ops governance, we go right to left across the board. We talk about what we've done, what we're doing, and then we get onto the prioritization of what to do. Allow it to shift the focus from these to-do lists and emails that linger around and leave an ill feeling because it feels like we haven't delivered anything. I've said about working iteratively. It delivers metrics, and I'll show the metrics that it delivers. And in our implementation, it looks like this. Bang, overwhelming. 11 lanes. It works for us, may not work for you. I'll go on to tips about when you do adopt Agile. We ended up adding lanes for waiting. It's a notion in IT that we spend half our time waiting for things. Let's not assume that every lane on here is an active lane. We're awaiting UAT, we're awaiting internal review. But fundamentally, nothing more. To do, all this good stuff in the background, in the backlog here, all in the demand, at that moment not looked at, ready for governance to steer through. All the stuff we're doing, what we're developing, what we're reviewing, what we're putting in front of you at, and all the stuff we've done. What are we releasing? What have we finished releasing? I will show this to whomever wishes to see it. I'll publish my slides. You'll see here as well the different people. So people have been product owner training who really want to get in their user stories properly. Underneath here, the analysts may help the user put things in a product, as a user story. The metrics. That looks great, but if that exists as a static board and doesn't drive anything, it's not delivering on those themes. This is what's called a Burnup chart, driven straight out of that Kanban board. That Kanban board is implemented in our service management tool, which allows us to, it's a database underneath, so we can get the data out. Ideally, I'd like to show each lane on this. I didn't have it at my disposal. Left-hand side there, Agile Evangelist, that is not user stories. User points, it should be. I need to work on that. Story points should be there. That's a number of user stories. This area here, what we've closed, what's still open, and that's cumulative. Now that's scary. Look at that. In fact, look at it in these terms. The arrival rate, look at the gradient of that versus how quickly we're working through things. Now, you could argue its uptake, this is the first year of running it, massive uptake at the beginning. I really don't want that at the start of every year. Bang, January, here you go. I'd hope that we're putting measures to improve things so we don't keep getting massive spikes, but it'll happen. But fundamentally, this is important. I heard one of the previous speakers said about the ill feeling of capturing all the demand that exists. I'm an advocate of it entirely, nail my colours to the mast. Let us know what the demand are. Some of those might be priorities that need to go ahead of anything else. But let us model it, let us have the confidence in us as IT to model it and articulate the argument. Articulate the argument we need extra resource, articulate the argument we need investment to address this unmet demand. More statistics. This is average, great. This is the average time we spend in any one of those Kanban lanes. If one was to look at the university's job site, at the moment there is a job for an analyst, student systems, with a student systems focus rather. This was one of the things selling that, driving that requirement, actually showing to senior levels of management, we need extra resource. We're spending, that's about 8 days there. So in 8 days looking at things before putting any development resource on average, that's frightening. Incidents isn't like that, I will say that. Systems down, we don't spend 8 days looking at it, poking it with a stick, hoping for some signs of life. But on service improvement, on average, okay, some of these might be skewed by massive requirements such as HESA, student systems, this was taken from again, and still too much. Development, my development team, looks like I've got it about right. I'm trying to give them a couple of meaningful size service level improvement user stories per week alongside their other instance. So about 5 days isn't bad. If that was more than 2 weeks, I'm doing terribly. My iterations are completely meaningless, and it would also show as well that I'm not helping the product owners size their requirements. So I'm going to hope, how am I doing for time, by the way? Oh, 5 minutes, okay. I'm going to miss questions if I'm not careful. If you're adopting any of these, just tips. If you're adopting our restructure is a Gartner-supported model, separating support from development. I'm sure many of you already have. Many of you may well still be working in silos. What I'd recommend, talk to my manager, Larry Kearns, who's head of application services. He'll be happy to talk to you. Active participant in UCISR. If you want to adopt Agile, first tip, something we got wrong. Start with the product owners. Convince them of the business value. Refactor the relationship if it's wrong with business. We are not a subservient organization. We shouldn't be. It is not a builder-client relationship. Not every builder, but you have some of the builders I've worked with on my house. I want a 45-degree incline on this single brick wall. Laugh at you, build it, wait for Abigail to knock it down. It should be a relationship of one of architect and client. You ask an architect to build a 45-degree wall, he'll talk about foundations and support and your partners in the success of that building. I'm sure I'm teaching people, well, not even teaching people to suck eggs on this, but it stands to reason. The reason why I just stress it is we started off getting the development teams, we'd restructured, we wanted assured of promises about how we're going to tackle things. It's cart before the horse, product owners first. Advice from us, Scrum Masters is a responsibility for us, it's not a role. Different schools of thought. There are some fantastic Scrum Masters who exist as developers, as analysts, I was a dreadful Scrum Master, I'm now not bad, in some instances good. But we have it as a responsibility. This is assurance rather than a tip, but developers enjoy this way of working. They enjoy seeing how their work contributes to the service. They enjoy the exposure. It's not kind of black box of IT. The whole premise is transparency so people can see what people are contributing. Because it's embedded in service management, constant user notes, etc. If you want to adopt Kanban, start with a whiteboard. Whiteboard in your development team to do, doing, done. Throw it up, and if it doesn't exist on that whiteboard, it doesn't exist at all. In our world, university world of many campuses, you may be forced into an online tool first. Fine. Great ones. One of the previous speakers showed Trello. Really good one. If you want some of the metrics, integrate it into service management. If you want the affordance of having incidents and enhancements in one place, that's a great driver. What I'd also say is reassure any metrics that you get from your Kanban board with PPM-led statistics, metrics. I won't talk about PPM. Our full transparency, our solution that we're just going online with is CA PPM. Our delivery partner, Pamari, Peter, if you want to talk about CA, he'll actually talk about it with some authority. I'll mumble. However long you talk to me about it, you're probably not going to get more than the first couple of sentences of value. That's really it for me, thankfully. I just want to show product owner feedback from somebody who's just gone online with bringing their service into my area. Just got the Kanban board a matter of a month or so ago. And here, this isn't me making this up, but Karen, if anyone in Pure World, yeah, you'll know Karen from there. Anyone from Coventry may know her from other. Yeah, our research intelligence product owner reports into our director of strategic planning. And there you go, confidence, assurance, and the working relationship between a service owner starting to pay dividends. My team, half of them. Anyone else have this data protection thing where image rights now have to be signed off? That's the half that have said they can have their photo in a public forum. Okay. Happy. I admitted something last night I wish I hadn't of. David Cameron moment. You know the Poppy superimposition? I had that photo. Guess what happens when you take a photo of a screen? The white coming back is a little bit superimposed back on. I give you my assurance, we have Kanban boards rolling on LED screens. Honestly, come visit me at the university, I'll show you them. God, this transparency will kill you. And that really is it for me. We have about 2 minutes to spare. I'll take any questions you like. Alternatively, if there's anything you want me to show, I realise I've been really whistle-stopped, so if there's anything you want me to show in great detail at the bar, share the slides, talk to me.
Richard, thank you very much. To get your team, the managers and the members of the team to work in new ways, you must have had facilitators, had external trainers, developers. Where did you begin?
What a really good question. You've hit on something that we absolutely did do. We got external facilitator. We had a really good knowledge of Agile contained within people within the university. But what we didn't want to do is make it look like we're making this stuff up. So we had presentation day when we started restructure what themes are we going to picking up. Had people from BBC, IBM, an Agile evangelist from IBM talking about their experience of working in an Agile way. We then had an external facilitator who's Scrum Alliance accredited, I think that's the right word for them, to come into, who's done it at Aston Martin, who's done it at local councils as well. Not in a training capacity, in a workshop capacity. That's a key thing as well. Kind of just to give assurance that this is industry standard, recognised ways of working. And certainly within my team, the methodology itself lends itself to addressing concerns early on. So first few retrospectives, we're doing this wrong. This doesn't make sense. The waiting lanes, exactly that. You're saying the users are looking at it, I'm having to chase them, they're not looking at this. We put in awaiting UAT lanes. So that retrospective saying that we're not going to get it right straight away, we're going to work on it iteratively, embed it in the process. But really, really good point. External valid, that should have been a tip.
Hi, Luke Taylor, University of Bristol. I wanted to ask questions about prioritization and demand management.
Yep.
So when talking about prioritization, both where you've got lots of different streams, might be sort of student systems, research systems, so prioritization across all of those streams, but also where you've got lots of small enhancement requests, and those need to be prioritized alongside the sort of bigger, meatier, maybe new step change services that are coming into play. And
if you're not careful, because in Agile you're addressing the highest business value items, some of those little ones get lost and it leaves an ill feeling. Absolutely recognised. I'll answer it in two ways. First, an iteration as a good resource manager, I should know what rate, driven by metrics, what rate I can get through. We're now into the second year where I can see similarity in user stories that have been raised previous year, so I can kind of know how big something is. The idea being we're not going to take on more than what's in an iteration. So if there's a meaty chunk and there's a few little ones which can make sure that we're working on a full iteration, it helps in that way. As long as we're delivering business value, and what's more, as long as we're not picking it. We in IT are not going to pick what we work on. Governance chooses that prioritization. The other theme in your question, service level expectations. So you've hit on something really crucial. When I was showing a Kanban board for student systems, service level improvement, it's a Kanban board for research intelligence, for HR payroll, which is great for ops groups where, if something comes through, we can progress it across the board. What happens when there's a competing priority and I need to use that elastic model to focus developers on a particular business area because, hey, we're going to miss student HESA return, or we're working Capita at the moment on USS returns, we're going to miss that. What I make sure is, driven by metrics, I can show the FTE I'm committing to each service. Each service has service level expectations, which we are not at all obfuscating. We have this FTE commitment to your area. The metrics prove that we are fulfilling that service level expectation. Third way as well, sorry. if it transpires that we can't deliver business value, the minimum viable service level improvement, if you like, metrics show that, and we can react accordingly. So to give you an example, Director of Strategic Planning is just put in our new strategic framework. There's going to be a lot of work on KPIs, on delivering reports, dashboards, all the rest. BI needs more resource. So our current service level expectation, we need more FTE, so it's a greater expectation can be placed upon it. Metrics can feed that. So we just got a data warehousing specialist brought into the team that our strategic planning department actually paid for. Because we're instilling confidence that we can deliver, instead of doing a manual workaround within strategic planning to work around the fact they didn't have the data at their disposal, they trust us to deliver. So it changes, and it's that whole thing, changing that argument. We're working together on this.
Could I just ask then, you talked about governance.
Yeah.
So how does that governance work then? Because it sounds like you're working at, potentially quite small chunks of development. And
so it's in the model. So service level improvement, we're talking about those granular steps to improve the service. We're not talking step change, which would be met by the development side. Make sure I'm answering the thrust of your question there. So I think the point I really want to highlight there is that I'm going to make sure that I'm not missing your question. Elaborate a little bit further, because otherwise I'm going to go on a tangent.
Again, it slightly comes back down to, student area want this done, and the HR area want this done, and
so at that ops level,
who's going to govern that?
I do see what you mean. I'm about to go on the right.
What's delivering the greatest business value across for the whole university, rather than, well, I'm HR. I think all of these are.
I was about to go down the right. I removed a slide actually from this. One of the things we've also done in our approach is to refactor governance. So ops level governance instilled, and that's great when there's no competition. There was always competition, but there's no hard contentious arguments that we have to take resource away. If at that stage we can't deliver service level expectations, the next layer of governance and the strategic level with an IT leadership team working in partnership with a business systems committee where we can bring people around a table together. I was answering that question.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much.
We're only just going down that route.
I think that's all we've got time for at the moment. I think you're around for the...
I am. I'm here all week.